Welcome, everybody, to the Streakers Island Podcast. It is I, Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst. And I got to say, I can see everyone moving while the intros are rolling. Dan just got up and ran away. Blade, you were just rocking out. Chazzy, you look very confused. But that's it.
I thought I found where my hat was, but I did not. So I had to quickly one back.
But with us today,
I think Aston Murphy's balding.
Matthew's
balding.
What is I, the self-proclaimed sports analyst? Below me is Lane Co. To the side, with a nice little slide, is Dan, more for your money, Mr. Moore. Oh my gosh, that was aggressive. And Chazzy, the CEO. All right, guys. So, Winnipeg, St. Louis is later tonight. But before we get into that, Dan, why are you laughing? What's so funny? Okay. Great input, Dan. I think that's Dallas laughing straight to the second round. So, Lane,
wow.
Can you talk to me a little bit about, and our viewers, what the heck happened in that game to Colorado? A third disaster.
Well, it's simple. Mikko Rantanen decided, in the Marvel movie when Infinity War, when Thanos told Thor you had to go for the head, and then in the next movie he went for the head. Well, Mikko Rantanen in the third period, he went for the head, and we're going to talk about Mr. Mikko Rantanen and the period of all periods in Game 7. 4 points in third period, 3 goals and an assist, 4 shots on goal. What a period. He takes out his former team and takes his new team onto the second round and leaves Nathan MacKinnon crying in his dressing room.
Man, it's interesting when you mentioned Nathan MacKinnon. I was watching a bit of his presser after the game, and he's just like, I don't know what to do.
Literally.
Like, he literally, and you know what? If you're Colorado, where do you go from here?
Like I said,
shock. He was in shock.
He wasn't.
I
just see the 30-second clip.
Oh, crazy. Like, this series was the battle of the trade. And turns out the Rantanen trade worked out better in the end. 11 points in the last 3 games. Like, now he's worth $14 million. Like,
For sure.
It's like, and that's why I made the switch the last minute. And when we did our playoff preview show, I said Colorado was going to take this series in 7. At this day 7, and about, last night during Kentucky Derby, I switched to Dallas in Game 7, and I'm thankful for the switch because now I got the streaker points. Woo.
But, man, I'm looking at that, and if you're Colorado, you're like, how did we let that game slip in the third? We had a 2-goal lead.
I would have blamed the goalie. Everyone's all after Mackenzie Blackwood. I thought he had a very good game. I mean, you look at all the offense that Colorado has, they could have got more than 2 goals. And they let off in the third period of the 2-goal lead, too, but you can't do that against Dallas. No, you have Cale Makar at 1 empty net goal in the whole series. Like,
he was bad. He was not good this series. He's a fantastic defenseman. I think he's still one of the best, but that's not acceptable in a 7-game series from one of the top-end defensemen in the league, especially. You heard that quote from Nathan MacKinnon where he said, we lost to a team without their best defenseman and their best forward.
Literally,
That's what made the news rounds. And unfortunately from Cale Makar, we talk about this from the Leafs all the time. You need more from your star players. You need guys like Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon to be the difference in these kind of games. And fortunately, Cale Makar wasn't really the difference here.
No.
You're muted, Jacob.
Mike.
Thank you. I would argue the same thing with Nathan MacKinnon. I thought in that Game 7, he looked pretty quiet compared to Mikko Rantanen.
He got a goal.
This is the risk when you trade a guy like Mikko Rantanen. You are trading a generational player. And mind you, they traded him to the East. He just said to Carolina, I don't want to play here. Get me the hell out of here. And they did, and they shipped him to Dallas. Basically for the same reason why Colorado originally didn't want to ship him in the West, is Toronto was interested, but they didn't want to send Rantanen to Toronto because they don't want to have to deal with him.
Well, The truth behind that is that Mitch Marner wouldn't waive his no movement clause. I think
That's
if
right.
Mitch Marner
that's
moved
why.
to no movement clause, I think that trade would have happened. I think it was that close.
So do I, actually.
Yeah. But Mitch Marner had a great playoffs too in the series against Ottawa. I like him, lump him, you know. Now he has a kid crying in the background. Maybe I'll keep him up against Florida. But versus Ottawa, he played fantastic, you know. He had, 10 points in 7 games or something like that? Is almost as good as Mikko Rantanen. Not quite, but close.
I mean, I wouldn't compare Marner to Rantanen in that first round at all. If anything, I thought Marner in that game 7 was kind of quiet. In that game 6, was kind of quiet. That was really
zero goals.
Matthews show.
I mean,
especially Willie, 2 goals and an assist.
Willie!
But if you're Colorado, I think you really need to figure out the guys you brought in. Are they the right pieces to keep it move forward? Or are you making a quick retool over the offseason? It's not a rebuild when you have McKinnon and Makar. You cannot rebuild when you have those 2 players. But you look at Natchez and Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle and Eric Johnson. Are those guys that you work with moving forward? Or are they guys that maybe you, sad to say it, but you move on from them?
Well, I think it all depends on the health of Gabriel Landeskog, too. He hadn't really played in 4 years. He's back now, and now you're kind of in a situation where you have to look at him and his spot on the roster and say, where is he going as I think he makes around $9 million a year now as well. So now you try to figure him into the lineup where his skill set is at over an 82-game season, and then you got to try to figure in all the UFAs, like you said, Jacob. So it's going to be a busy offseason there for the Colorado Avalanche, and it's not going to be an easy one.
I think Jacob called it too. Colorado has never been the same without Nelson Kadri. And I figured Jacob was right. Brock Nelson was a good replacement, but obviously not.
Yeah, Brock Nelson surprisingly didn't fit. Now, mind you cut his ice time drastically going from the Islanders to the Avalanche, as he is not the same. He's not expected to do the same. On the Islanders, he is a top player. On the Avalanche, he's a bottom 6 forward. So you couldn't expect the same output, but you brought a guy like him in to score a big goal when you needed it, and he just didn't get it done. So it really does question me with Colorado, and I think, Lane, you've nailed it on the head too when you talk about Landeskog. Where's he at after this? Is he coming back? Is he? Because, I mean, he was effective this series.
He was, yeah. For sure.
He had a good series. So, Craig, you look like you're deep in thought. So what do you think?
Oh, no. Since you guys been here on the island yesterday, I have the football game over here listening to you guys, and no, I'm great.
But I don't know. I think for Colorado, I saw one quote from Elliot Friedman, and I'm going to be honest with you, it really bothered me, where he said, oh, well, Colorado gets a pass because it was Dallas. If this was Toronto facing Florida first round, oh, the Leafs suck. It's the curse of the 1812. No, if you're going to be like that, Colorado is expected to go to the Cup Finals this year. Yes, so was Dallas. That's not the point. Either way, you had to get through the other one.
Yeah, 100%.
And you didn't get it done. I make the same argument about the LA Kings. I'll make the same argument about any team losing to any team. To win a Stanley Cup, you have to beat the team that's better than you on paper.
Yep.
Yeah,
same with the Jets tonight. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but that's, let's actually talk a bit about that Jets game. How concerned if you're a Jets fan? Like, Lane, I know you were like me going into game 6 saying if the Jets lost 6, they're going to lose the series. Or do you I still feel that way, to be completely honest with you. I have zero faith in Connor Hellebuyck, even though you have to go to him. But what are your thoughts?
I don't understand this whole Connor Hellebuyck thing. He's just not a playoff player. You can bring up the stats about his Vezina season. You can talk about how good he is in the regular season, but when it comes down time to crunch, he doesn't have it. Some guys just don't have it. It's not a bad thing.
It's got to be frustrating because, you pay Connor Hellebuyck. I believe you think he's the 3rd highest paid goalie in the NHL.
Gets paid over 9, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think he's around that 9 to 10 million in that range there. I think he's one of the top 5 highest paid goalies.
And it's one of those things you expect more.
Yeah, 100%. he lets in the first goal of the first shot of Game 6 as we were wrapping up. Literally the first shot St. Louis takes, it's in the back of the net, and they can't even. They're
What?
trying to find ways to challenge it, and then he lets the second goal in on the 5th shot. It's like, what's going on here? It's 5 shots, and we're already down 2-0 already. This is
It's
your
just not
goalie.
acceptable.
No,
That was a
it's
shocker.
terrible.
That was a shocker.
It really was.
I
7
hope
minutes
for
into
the
the
hope
game.
for the Jets, but like they are at home. I think you made the point there, Lane. Last time every team has won their home game.
Yes.
Now you come down to the 7th, and this is the decider. So I think it could be a tight, maybe OT, but St. Louis is not going to roll over. That's for sure.
No. And
So
but-
Connor,
How much of
do
the injuries are hurting the Jets right now? The chemistry or
no excuse. No excuse.
Well, see, that's what I was going to say. I know you're all concerned about Hollebuck. I'm concerned about not having Mark Seifley because I didn't realize until Game 6 that he was injured. But as much as everyone goes on, Winnipeg has depth. Yeah, they got tons of depth in defense. They got tons of depth in the wingers. They have no depth in the center whatsoever.
They don't.
Like, you look at those 4 centers, I'm like, come on, it's a battle of the third line center. Like, I didn't think of it until you have Mark Seifley. And, it's like, I'm more concerned about that than I am with the goalie.
I'm still
Because-
more concerned about the goalie. 'Cause I
Like,
think
Winnipeg looked really lost about Mike Seifley in Game 6. And you look at, like, Wade said, maybe his 16 goals wasn't the best he had of his career, but Braden Sen is a dominant first-line center. He's a tank, bro, and he really dominated that Game 6, and I think he's going to dominate Game 7. So
I'm
really
surprised to see no changes in the lines, to be truthful with you. I thought Lowry and number 7, I have a hard time pronouncing his last name, but that's okay.
Nate Skopson off.
Dan, you are not the person to help pronounce a name. But but I really thought that we would have seen Lowry moved up to the second line, into the top line, just to try. And I maybe would have even flipped Ehlers and
with
Connor.
Ehlers? Yeah, Ehlers. No.
Either that or I would have flipped Ehlers and Connor to try to, because I know he's been injured, but I thought Nikolai Ehlers looked really good in Game 6. I thought he was one of Winnipeg's better players.
No, do what I would do. You have to
What
keep
would you
Connor.
do, Dan?
You have to keep Connor on the top line. I would put Ewers on the off lane wing and move Vardy to the second line where Ewers is. You can't have Kyle Connor and not have him on the top line. He's a 40-goal scorer. Look at the mistake Team USA did, benching Kyle Connor. Where did that leave them in the gold medal game?
Okay, but look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. William Nylander is your second liner, and he had 46 goals this year. It creates
Yeah,
depth.
but Matthews is 100. Sorry, not Matthews. Marner is a 100-point player, right? Well, I know, but that's the argument.
Matthews, if he was healthy, was 100. It would have been a 100-point player
The
this
only,
year.
the
But
only problem I
No,
see
Marner,
with
bro.
that- Dan, the only problem I see with that, I feel like it just in the playoffs, you can't really like top load your lines because St. Louis just puts their shutdown line and then their first line is useless the entire game. And then you have then you got your second to fourth lines that aren't going to really be doing a lot of busy nothing.
That's very true. Yeah.
the only other thing I could maybe see is them moving up IXL follow up to the third line, flipping him and Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah.
No. Dwyer had a good Game 6. I would
I don't
keep him on
care.
the
They
third
didn't
line.
score enough. 2 goals, even with good goaltending.
He got one of the goals.
I don't think 2 goals is going to be enough in this series.
No, I know that,
Game
but I'm just
7.
saying, you can't
Jordan
blame.
Binghamton's been really good this series,
Yeah.
so it's going to be tough. And I don't know. I get there's not much the Jets can do, and it's difficult too when you're looking at trying to go against this lineup, which is pretty
They need
balanced.
shots. That's what they can do.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely need
shoot.
shots. But when I look at this lineup here, it's more balanced. You see like Buchnevich is having a great playoff. Thomas and Kyrou, the neighbors.
Kyrou.
Sure. And, you're looking, and okay, the bottom 6 is more of a traditional bottom 6, but there are bottom 6 that runs around and hits. This is tough. Winnipeg's not matching up well against this Blues team. Now, the only advantage they have here is every game that has been won at home.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So time will tell here.
Seems to be the
still
biggest difference for the goaltending.
I truly feel it is going to come down to goaltending tonight.
So I'm just going to call this out here, okay? I know this is a fawn of pounding new NHL, but as we be real here, if you are Winnipeg, are you going to get one of your fourth liners? Whoa, is to knock out Bennington?
No, you're not.
No.
No.
I mean, that wasn't an effective strategy when Edmonton did it. Corey Perry got him off his game, just knocked him down one time and gets him a little frustrated. And that is a big thing that is bad with Jordan Binnington is sometimes he can't control his emotions too well.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, so you could get underneath his skin right at the beginning. I'm not saying like take him out forever. I'm just saying get underneath his skin. You know.
Maybe.
I could see getting under his skin. Maybe, you know what, every time he covers a puck, poke out his pads and his glove and just kind of get under him. But again, U.S. tried to do that in the Four Nations. Dad, you're just showing that you're balding like Austin.
No, it's why I read the screen.
It's just kind of looking at the goaltender stats. And truthfully, none of like Binghamton statistics are certainly better than Hellebuck's, but they're also not phenomenal. They're not bad by any means. And Binghamton's certainly been playing better. But you need better out of Connor Hellebuck to win tonight. Wouldn't you guys not agree? I think Connor Hellebuck has to have a good game.
Those stats are disgusting.
So I know both Lane and I kind of feel like, and again, I'm going to say this, I hope Winnipeg wins tonight.
Same.
But I'm not confident.
No.
But Dan, you seem at least, now you flip-flop more than a flip-flop that Chazzy lost and he was in his backyard. But Dan, you seem to think Winnipeg will win this game. Pourquoi?
The big question mark for me is losing a top center. However, in a do-or-die game, everyone goes on about how deep this Winnipeg Jets team is. That's all we've been hearing all year. That's why we didn't do as much of the trade deadline. Maybe arguably we could have, okay? Well, I would have been a lot better if Brock Nelson was on this team now without Mark Seifert. But anyway, isn't that his conversation? So, even though Mark Seifert's out, someone on the wing has to have a big game, like Kyle Connor, like Nikolai Ewers, like
Josh Morrison.
Niederreiter, you know, like Gabriel Audi there. One of those four guys have to have a bit. Iafallo, you know, one of those guys have to have a big game, and I think one of them will. I think one of them will step up because you look at Adam Lowry, he's a good face-off guy, right? So okay, face-off wise, you know. So maybe
there you go, Dan.
Well, I'm explaining my reasoning, though. I think, Mark Seifert is out, one of the wingers are going to step out, hopefully Kyle Connor, and put this game to bed. I don't think it's going to be easy, but, because I think Hellebuck hasn't played better, basically. I think he will play better.
I think the one difference tonight is the whiteout, pretty much.
Exactly.
Other than that, you're down, and that whiteout has to carry you.
Well, you are looking, and the home teams have had the advantage in this series. I think just my concern is when you look at the series breakdown and you start to look at the games, Winnipeg, the games they're winning have been respectable. The games the Blues are winning, they're dominating.
Yeah.
So if the Blues get up early in this game, the Jets are done.
Yeah, they count down the goals. Like, one.
Well, that's what I was going to actually ask the circle here is how big is that first goal? Like how big is it?
I would argue,
especially if it's early.
Yeah, this is bigger than any other first goal in the playoffs so far.
Like if you think St. Louis can get their second shot in, is that just a game right there?
Well, it's been tough because once Hellebuck lets a bad one in, the whole team just seems to go.
All right.
So I'll just call it if Hellebuck does do something crazy like that. Do you put Comrie in early?
Yeah,
I would, but I don't think this coach will.
No, not at home. No,
I don't care where I am.
No, Game 7 at home.
Even on Mars,
you might as well trade him before next season. Then
I think he might.
How you're going to come back? This is your biggest game. You just basically ran the table in the league all year, and now you're Game 7 at home. One of the biggest, most frantic crowds. The energy is going to be electric. You have to win this game, or at least compete. Take them to overtime. take them overtime and you fluke, you lose. Okay, whatever. Go on next year.
No,
Yes.
that's not okay. Whatever.
No,
You are the best team in the NHL.
President's Trophy.
Facing the fourth worst team in the playoffs.
I'll
You're
call
going
it.
against the goalie that has a history of stealing series
I don't care.
away from top teams.
I don't
So,
care.
I'll
And
call
again,
it.
the reason why I say this, we put the Leafs on this pedestal, and I think when we do that, we have to put other teams in that same regard. Winnipeg has been the best team in the NHL all season. So in theory, they should be able to miss their whole top line and still find a way to win a game, to win one game. One. They need to win one game. If they do not win this one game, number one, I think the head coach is gone.
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
Because I've said it during game 6. It was as soon as he let in the Braden Shen goal, Hellebuck did. I'm like, pull him.
Yeah, 100%.
Get him out of there. Because the whole team just went, like, get him out. There's no confidence in that goalie. Get him out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because remember, that game ended up 5-2. If you pull him at that 3-1 and you're still in this game, Comrie actually looked pretty good when he came in for the third. Maybe you make that a game.
Well, 100%. And I'm going to call it here on the island. If they lose game 7, Hellebuck gets traded. You're going to get a mediocre goalie, and you're getting another top 6 centerman. Because that's the big gap on this team. No disrespect to Adam Lowry. I love the guy.
He's a third line center.
Yeah, at best. And then you got the ever Wesson
centerman. With Scheifele being healthy, Adam Lowry is normally your third line center.
And don't forget, this team did have Brian Little. And Brian Little.
Dan, they'll just sign John Tavares.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah, Brian Little, great former Barrie coach, but he was a very good second line center and a good top line center if needed to be. And unfortunately, his career ended early because of injuries, but they never really covered that gap in Winnipeg's lineup since they lost him, in my opinion.
But it's just what the big difference maker when you really look at the stats, like the power play. Okay, the Blues are at 24%, the Jets are at 20%. Penalty kill, the Jets are at 80%, the Blues are at 80%, Jets are at 76%. Face-offs, 51.2% Blues, 48.8% for the Jets. So although the Blues are winning in all those categories, they're close enough you could almost call it a wash. The big issue is the goals for and the goals against per game. The Blues are averaging 4 goals a game while allowing in 2.3. And obviously flip that the other way for the Jets. 2.3 goals for, 4 goals against. That's been the difference maker. I really feel whichever goalie outplays the other one wins game 7 tonight. And if I'm playing these two teams in an 82-game season, my money's on Connor Hellebuck. If I'm in a 1v1 situation in a do-or-die game, my money's on Jordan Binnington.
Yeah.
I don't even like spend money.
But even if you get by the Blues, how concerned are you going against this Dallas Star?
Oh,
that's a whole other ball game.
Not at all. New series, new team. I don't care.
Oh,
that is not.
Oh, so you're clean slate.
Clean slate. If you look at any team that goes on a deep run, they do not think about the series until they're there.
Good point. Yes.
Like, who cares? And again, in theory, Winnipeg is the best team in the NHL. No team should scare them. I don't care who they are.
So how far do we have any report on how long Scheifele's out for? Or
no, he said he won't play tonight.
No.
He did skate today, but he was in like a tracksuit.
They are comfy.
But I am just very, very concerned. I think the Winnipeg fan base would be concerned going against Dallas. Truthfully, I don't think either one of these teams should be worried about going against Dallas. Especially the Blues, the way the Blues are playing right now, they feel they're unbeatable at home. So they need one road win per series. That's all they need.
And we talked about this in Battle of Ontario. It's kind of the same with this battle, too. There's no pressure for St. Louis, okay? The same with Ottawa. There's no pressure for Ottawa. If they lost in Game 6, no one cares. Versus if Toronto lost in 7, we would all be flipping out right now. And that's the same with Winnipeg. If St. Louis loses tonight, when the program, Paul would be upset. But besides the Paul, we'll be like, oh, okay, whatever, blah, 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 blah. You know, we were like dead last going into it. We went 13-3-2 down the stretch. We made the playoffs. Great, fine. if Winnipeg loses, holy cow, this team is getting blown up, okay? You're firing the coach. You're getting rid of Hellebuck. And you might even have a fire for GM because arguably he didn't do enough on trade deadline.
Oh,
That's
this is
true.
your season seed holders on the line here tonight. Like, how many people will renew if you lose this game tonight?
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point.
There might be some riots in Winnipeg tonight.
Oh, yeah, kind of like Vancouver back in the day.
I look at this, though, it's a must-win for Winnipeg. It sounds dumb. If the Blues lose this series, I don't know how big of a deal it is for the team.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They went on a crazy run. They made the playoffs when they realistically shouldn't have. Same
And
for
they're
the
looking
Minnesota
really good
Wild.
for next year.
I don't think the Wild were expected to beat the Golden Knights. They took them to 6 games. I think the majority of the fans will be happy with that.
I think so.
I think people will be happy with Winnipeg going out in the first round.
No, not acceptable. And plus, too, Winnipeg, the city, has that cultural winning effect with the Blue Bombers being so dominant in recent years and winning a couple Grey Cups and all that. The city kind of expects it.
You make a good point, Dan, there too, because you look at how much more pressure was on the Leafs after the Raptors got it done.
Right.
And the Blue Bombers have been to the Grey Cup 5 straight years. The city is used to their team not being mediocre.
Right.
And straight up, you are seeing them early in the season. They are struggling to sell tickets while the Blue Bombers games are on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's interesting. When the CFL season is going, the Jets are selling an average of 3,900 tickets less per game while the CFL season's still going. So it's because fans have more faith that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will get it done. That's why I think this is such an important series for Winnipeg.
And it's really interesting. When you look at the first round as a whole, I thought the series was going to be a lot better than what they were. And the best series have been the 2 series of mini Game 7. Like Winnipeg and St. Louis is very physical. They're really beating up each other that way. And Colorado and Dallas was a very tight series going back and forth, like from period to period of what team was better, you know? So we're definitely 2 entertaining series, I think, in the first round.
I'm just concerned though for Winnipeg. I just don't think the depth's there right now. I think with Scheifele out, and Dan, I do agree with you. This has been an awesome series.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we kept saying, oh, yeah, Winnipeg's depth, but we never thought when the top center will get injured. We always thought, oh, well, Winger's in, you put in this guy. Oh, well, defense gets in, you put in this guy. Blah, 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 blah. But now if Scheifele gets injured, like, oh, they don't have anybody.
Also a concern for Winnipeg. They only have 2 goals from their defense the whole series, and they're from DeMello and Pionk.
So where's Morrissey in all this?
3 assists.
Yeah,
this
he
whole
needs to be
series.
bigger, 100%.
And Lane, you mentioned that earlier in the show. How you really feel Josh Morrissey needs to step up.
Yeah, he's one of the. He's a top end defenseman. He's a first line guy, top 2, like a top defenseman in the league. You need a kind of a. You see in these playoffs, you need kind of a sometimes you need a bad shot. Sometimes you need a bad shot from the point that a goalie doesn't see, or you got 5 guys standing in front. You just need to throw it on net, and Josh Morrissey could do that, and he just hasn't in this series.
Look at Simone Benoit.
Yeah,
I was going to say that. You look at the Leafs; they had the worst scoring deep blue line in the NHL in the regular season. Then they get a goal from Benoit, a couple from Riley, and a goal from OEL.
Yeah.
Right. So you're getting, and especially Benoit's goal. Benoit, it was in overtime. It was a kind of a weak shot with some traffic. And I think maybe that's an issue for Winnipeg too. I watched them. They're not just willing to take the shots with traffic.
Try to be too cute. Yeah.
But if you're looking at Winnipeg's lineup here, because let's be honest, as much as we're split on who we think is going to win this game, we all would like to see Winnipeg win. So Chazzy, I'm going to start with you. Who's one player on that Jets roster that you think could step up for this team and get something done with Mark Scheifele injured?
Oh, I think it's got to be Kyle Connor for sure.
Yeah,
he's got to create it. He's got to generate it. He's got to shoot the puck. He's got to lead this thing here.
So then, Lane, I'm going to ask you the same question. Who's one guy, or maybe you already answered this with Morrissey, but is it Morrissey you're thinking is the guy that's got to step up?
Nope, it's Connor Hellebuck.
Oh.
That's just what it is.
The elephant in
At
the
the
room,
end of the day,
absolutely.
the elephant in the room, whatever you want to say, Connor Hellebuck has to be the guy. Because no matter what's going to happen, if he lets in 2 goals on 3 shots, 2 minutes into the game, they might as well just turn around and buy their season tickets for the Blue Bombers and say, see you later, we're done here. Hit the golf courses, we're out of here. They might as well just not even come back out for the second period. It's done.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. Well, because you got the crowd. You have to keep the crowd in it.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
They
Like,
gotta start the tempo and get that momentum.
but Chazzy, here's the problem. If Connor Hellebuck lets in 2 stinkers,
Oh, he's going to
crowd's gonna be
deflate
doing?
the whole arena.
You're
Yeah.
He will.
going to hear crickets the rest. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like that nervous energy in Toronto. Like, yeah, they're going to be going like, woohoo, white up. But the second those 2 goals go in, they're going to be like,
Yeah.
No, you,
Right?
you are.
And we'll probably feel it from home because we know how much
the awkward silence.
how much there's on this game.
So I'm gonna say before I go to you, Dan, I'm gonna say a guy that I'm expecting to step it up is Nino Niederreiter. He's been a bottom 6 guy, and I think in a game 7 you usually need a bottom 6 player to step up. I could see Nino Niederreiter making a big play at the right moment, or I'm calling out my boy Luke Shen here. He is a guy that could really set the tone physically.
Yeah.
And
-3 in that last game.
maybe you see a big fight early in this game to try to set the tone, and I could see Luke Shen being the guy to do that. But Dan, who's someone you're seeing that you think could really make a big impact here?
I just want to say something really funny quickly in Game 6 or something I've never seen. We saw Luke Sen and Braden Sen got in a huge verbal fight on the benches. He wants how to wake
I'm
up.
sure the parents are used to that.
I literally thought they were going to drop the gloves. Like, boy, we seen the Blovers play against each other with Scott and Rob Niedermeyer and stuff like that. But you have a full-blown fist fight with 2 Blovers? I haven't seen that before. That would have been awesome. Someone's going to get injured in that fight with 2 giant heavyweights. But I'm going to go off the board with my answer here. I'm going to go Adam Lowry. Adam Lowry is the captain of this team. Adam Lowry was drafted by this team. And maybe Adam Lowry can set someone like me up saying Winnipeg has no depth in center. Well, Adam Lowry's a decent player. So he's got to play one really incredible game. My prime example of this, you look at the Cup finals in Pittsburgh and Detroit way many years back. And one of the top players that stepped up in that game and Stanley Cup winning game was Max Talbot. Max Talbot was a 4th-line center at best, but he had 2 goals or something like that one game and won Pittsburgh that game. So I'm hoping Adam Lowry does the same tonight.
Yeah, I think Adam Lowry's a big one. He's got 2 goals in this series and a -1, so relatively quiet. He's been great at the face-off. Sorry, -3 actually, but he's been just under 56% on the draws.
Wow.
Which that's been big for them. But obviously, Kyle Connor's a big guy that could have a big impact here, and he's your best player with Mark Scheifele out. But when we look at the other side on the St. Louis Blues, their roster is also pretty stacked. The NHL website's having some weird things. It just showed me the Hamilton Tigers on the NHL website, so figure that one out.
What's the Hamilton Tiger? I know Tiger.
I guess as Lane would say, they want some Oski Wee Wee on their site.
That's
Oh,
right.
what's Tiger? Wow.
But who's someone on the Blues that you could see potentially stepping up and be a gamer? And this time we're going to go around the opposite way. So, Dan, we'll start with you.
Ooh. I'm going to say Braden said. Well, the same reason Adam Lowry. He's a captain, and not just that. Braden Sen had kind of a quiet year with 16 goals. A lot of teams like Toronto wanted Braden Sen in Toronto. St. Louis asked Braden Sen to waive his no-move clause to Toronto, and he said no because he believes this team's going to get it done. In order to get it done, you got to go past the first round. And you look at Game 6, the goal that kind of collapsed Winnipeg in Game 6 was the Braden Sen goal. It was a weak shot with screen in front and everything. And he's just one of those special players. He's got kind of, besides that one goal, he's had a little bit of a quiet series, I think. So I think he's going to have a big Game 7 here tonight.
I'm going to go completely off the board and say Colton Parenko. Colton Parayko for the St. Louis Blues, just averaging under a point per game this series with 1 goal and 4 assists in 6 games with a +3. He's been very physical. He's been moving the puck well. He looks like Colton Parayko from 5 years ago. So the big thing is the way he's been able to stretch out the offense. Same with Cam Fowler. They've made it very difficult for Winnipeg to get back to defend after they've had some chances, which is creating odd man rushes. I could see Colton Parayko having a big impact for this game for the St. Louis Blues. But Chazzy, who do you think on St. Louis could potentially break this game?
Skip Lane, eh?
No, Lane went first last time.
Number 21 was brought to my attention, I think, during game 2. Jimmy Snuggerud. He has been flying all over the ice. I think he's a +5, 3 points or whatever. But just him skating around, making that impact, I think he could be a differentiator here tonight and be one off the board that could.
That's really off the board. Wow.
In the lights.
You know what, though? He's had an excellent series. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, and a +3.
He's got 2. Yeah, 4 points.
He's got a power play goal this series as well.
You watch him fly around the ice. He's like 21 just flying.
Wow,
and we've seen more penalties called this year than any other year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that could be an impact. But Lane, when you're looking at the Blues, who do you see stepping up in this one?
Well, of course, we saved the best opinion for last. That's really why I went left. No, I'm sticking with the netminders. I'm sticking with Jordan Binnington because I look at it like all he has to do is just get that crowd going, make some big saves early, get the momentum, get the vibe in that building, the whiteout, all the crowd going. They just silence them, make those big saves early. You saw him do it in the Four Nations when he had to. He made the big saves. If he can do that tonight, play his best game, put the pressure on Connor Hellebuck to make those big saves, he can step up and be a stone in the net. I think the Blues have a really good chance to steal one here on the road.
You know what, Lane? I like that you really focused on the goalies because I think that's been the biggest focus this whole series has been which goalie can make one more save.
Interesting. We all had different answers. Like you were focused on defense, Jacob. Lane was focused on the goalie. I was focused on the captains. And Chazzy was focused on the forwards. So all very different answers. That's awesome. That was not pre-planned, by the way.
But no, I think this is a game. I know I've said it before already, but I'm going to say it again. This is a game for the Winnipeg Jets. You absolutely have to win.
Yeah.
Yep.
I understand whoever loses goes home, and I'm not saying it in that sense, but I mean this is one you absolutely have to get done because if you don't get it done, you're going to look back on this year and go, "What an absolute failure!"
Is that the exact same as the Toronto Maple Leafs? Like we talked,
I think
about
there's more pressure on Winnipeg right now than there was on Toronto.
Really?
The President's Trophy, you have been dominant the last few years, and you're never mind the core 4. Your biggest problem has been one player. Connor Hellebuck has been terrible, and Winnipeg has not gone on it. Hasn't really been able to do much in the playoffs lately.
Well, I have a question for everybody here quickly. If you want quick go around here, how big do you think the coaching will be? I mean, you look at David Montgomery. He's had a very successful run in Boston there. He's an experienced coach. He's had a lot of Game 7 experience. Very well. He came in the middle of this season, turned this team around, got them hot at the right time, got them to the playoffs. And you see the Winnipeg coach who, again, he's been there for a while now, and every single year the same thing seems to keep happening where they keep running into the same issues.
Yeah, I think
jobs are on the line in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
When you bring up the coaching, and usually the head coach goes, they all fall down.
Yeah.
And yeah, Lane, 100%. I think this is a absolutely huge concern for Winnipeg would be the coaching. I think Jim Montgomery and the Blues, no matter what happens, he's got his job next year.
Oh, yeah.
He turned the team around. They were garbage when he got here, and he turned them into a legitimate playoff contender. But it's something else I want to say that's interesting about Winnipeg, and you guys kind of seem questioned when I said that there's much pressure on them, if not more than Toronto. So in the last 10 years, they've made the playoffs 7 times, and they've only won 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Right? And we look, if they lose this round, this will be 3 straight years of first-round exits having good records. Last
Yeah.
year, they went 52, 24, and 6, and they went out in the first round.
Yeah.
The year before, 46, 33, and 3. You went out the first round. And I think
Wow.
that year in 2023, you missed the playoffs in 22. So I don't think you were that concerned.
Mhm.
But your last good playoff run was 2018.
Yeah.
Since 2018, you have won one round.
How deep did they go in 18?
Third.
18, they went to the conference finals.
Yeah.
And who'd they play?
They
Do we know?
played someone.
Dick Weston.
No, if you had it there.
They played Vegas.
Oh, okay.
That's the year Vegas went to
Was
the
that their
finals.
second year?
Yeah.
Was that
That was
Vegas'
Vegas's first year when Marc-Andre Fleury just went on the run for the ages.
And
Yeah.
James Neal. Holy cow.
But
Jacob, correct
that's,
me if I'm
Go
correct me
ahead,
if I'm wrong. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
The
you're
one
good.
round was only in the was the Canada Cup, right? That's the only round they've won, right? Was the
When they
Canada,
beat Montreal.
which was a made up tournament and kind of not a real
Wait, no,
thing
sorry. When
anyway.
they
So
beat, they didn't beat Montreal. They beat
Edmonton, right?
Edmonton, which was a shock.
Yeah.
Which you're right. That was the one. I'm sure Chazzy's like, no, that's the way the playoffs should be every year.
Yeah.
but it's crazy
That was
how
a magical run for Montreal that year.
It really was.
you almost can't even count that. Like I don't even count. Like I don't count anything from those years because they weren't full seasons. They weren't. You were playing in your own country. You're playing the same team 10 times this. Like it was kind of a nightmare. You can't count that as a full season and being like, well, we won that round, yeah, but that was kind of just
You make
let's
a good
throw
point
it
there,
on the
Link.
table because we had nothing else to do.
Bragging rights.
You make a really good point. So basically, since you went to the conference finals, you haven't won a round,
A real round, I would say.
a real round, and that's no disrespect to when Montreal went to the Cup finals that year, and then unfortunately got slaughtered by Tampa. But that's why I think there's more pressure on Winnipeg right now than there even is on Toronto.
I would
Because
agree.
Toronto, you can see what changes can be made, right? You're like, okay, well, if Toronto fails again, they don't re-sign Marner, they don't re-sign Tavares, even with signing Matty Nyes, because I think you have to lock him up. Okay, cool. We have about $20 million to play with. You look at Winnipeg, Scheifele's locked up long-term. Hellebuck's locked up long-term. Not that Scheifele's been your problem, but Hellebuck sure has.
You have to trade Hellebuck.
Dan, he's got a no move. He could just be like, no.
Okay, dump him on waivers,
No.
but you gotta get rid of him.
Fuck off.
Oh.
Quack off.
And just not be interested. That's why I think there's more pressure on. I would argue there's more pressure on Winnipeg to get it done than any other team in the playoffs right now. Even Colorado, because Colorado can use the excuse, "Oh, we lost to Dallas." And
After hearing the stats you just rhymed off for the last 3 years, yeah, there's a lot on this game.
yes, I think if the Jets don't get it done, you are going to see any move that can be made will be made, or at least will be looked at.
Yeah.
And I do agree with Dan. I think maybe adding depth to the center position, you got to wonder if Winnipeg even brought in a guy like Scott Laughton did in Toronto, or called Toronto even and said, like, look, since you brought in Laughton, would you be willing to move David Kempf? Or you call even for a guy like Nick Robertson out of Toronto, or Charlie Coyle who went to Colorado, or I was screaming at my TV for Winnipeg to bring in Brock Nelson, because Brock Nelson would fit Winnipeg, I think, a lot better than he didn't really fit in Colorado. Because I would argue Winnipeg plays similar to the way the Islanders do, just with a bit more talent.
Right, yeah, I can see that.
So this game for Winnipeg is absolutely critical. Like I said, for the Blues, honestly, I think they're just happy to be. I think they're kind of like they're just kind of happy to be here at this point.
Share my
Players
screen
want to get
quickly.
through, obviously.
See what we think about this here. I know it might be hard to read, but
I'll put it up for you, Lane.
just thought maybe I could share this. We could kind of look over this while we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets there. So we'll take a look at their next year cap. So you're looking potentially got to sign Nikolai Ehlers. He's a UFA right there.
Wow,
that's going to be tough. $6 million. You got to extend that as well.
Yeah.
You got Brandon Tanev, who's a UFA, which I guess you could kind of walk away from.
Rental player, probably.
Yeah. You got Gabriel Velarde, who's looking for a new contract, who's a restricted free agent.
Right.
You still got Lowry, Perfetti. You got to sign Mason Appleton. You got Namestikov. You got Morgan Barron and Kupari, which you could realistically, you don't really have to bring those guys back. And then you got Dominic Tonito, who's another rental there. Your decor pretty much locked up except for Sandberg and Hayden Fleury, but I don't think you're too worried about that. And then, of course,
What about Luke Sen? I think his contract's coming up, is it?
No, we still got 2 years.
Really? Oh, wow.
and then in that you've got, like you said, you got Connor Hellebuck there for at least until 2027
years?
there.
Had 8.5.
And- Yeah.
It's not bad
So,
for
yeah.
goalies.
It is
So
bad
we
if he
take
can't
a
win a playoff game. Thanks, Lane, for bringing that in. That's an
Just
awesome.
I was looking at it because I wanted to see how much cap space they still had, and this is going on what Dan was saying. They still had $1.2 million to spend. So why couldn't they have brought in a Scott Lutton? Why couldn't they have
That's what
brought
I'm
in
saying.
player X? Why couldn't they have thought, maybe we should get a center just in case something happens? And they kind of
Or
didn't.
call the Devils when they were shopping. Not the Devils. The Blackhawks. And they were shopping Taylor Hall.
Yeah. Like
Or
anyone.
that really good player in Chicago who got like 20 goals, Donato.
Donato, yeah.
20 goal scorer,
Yeah.
right? Like there were guys available that didn't get moved.
Like, I'm not saying if you're Winnipeg, you got to sell the farm. I'm not saying that. And
I do.
get when they have the best team, you're not going to mess around with it too much. And I thought the trades they did with Sen and Tanev were fantastic trades.
Well,
And I'm not saying you have to bring in a franchise center like Mark Scheifele, but in my opinion, the other center in Winnipeg's are kind of more defensive-minded centers with face-off and penalty kills and stuff like that. You gotta bring in a center that has an offensive flair to it. Someone like a Brock Nelson, for example, someone that's going to get your 20 goals, 50 points. Everyone laughs. And I laughed at Fizz. I think he was kind of ridiculous when he was so hyped up. But I would have called up Pittsburgh and brought in Kevin Hayes. I think Kevin Hayes would have been perfect for this situation. Because I don't think when that one trade that you got traded, you got like 3 first-round picks, and they were kind of ridiculous. But obviously, he wasn't going to get that much this year. And Kevin Hayes in the pit, someone, in fact, you could put in to the top line, right? And he just sat in Pittsburgh doing nothing.
Yeah, there were guys available, right?
Yeah,
so that's just where if the Jets lose this series, I think there's a good chance Kevin Cheveldayoff is gone. And I think there's a good chance the coach is gone as well. And Winnipeg really reevaluates. Because as Lane pointed out, the one round they won in 2021, that season was just weird. So you could argue they haven't won a real playoff round since 2018.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to discredit it, but
but it's true.
That's had very good records every season.
I know people might say, "Oh, you're just sad because you're a Leafs fan there and you lost to Montreal." Which I mean, I am, but that's not the point. No, but it wasn't a real season. Like
You're right, Lane, it wasn't.
Look at Columbus with Sean Monahan. He would have been a nice fit. But
well, no, Columbus wasn't selling though because they were right in the playoff hunt, right? But there were guys.
I'm not saying if you gave up enough, you could have got someone like that.
There were guys available.
Yeah.
I actually don't think Sean Monahan would have left. After the whole Johnny Gaudreau tragedy, I really think he wants to be the kind of the guy to help that team turn around. I think I could see Sean Monahan as kind of the guy who's like wants to be a leader there in Columbus and really help turn around the ship there, especially after his best friend unfortunately passed away. I don't think he would even entertain leaving that team.
No, I don't think he would either.
Good point.
But the interesting thing is, I'm just throwing this up here, and I'll share my screen with you guys. And there are some. I just went on to good old TSN to look up their trade bait list because I made my own trade bait list, which was superior to TSN's. I thought I'd add, but I don't have it with me. But you see guys who didn't go anywhere, like a Brock Besser. I know he was expensive. But try to make a move. And look at Ryan Donato at $2 million. There's no way you can't tell me you couldn't have made that work and you already had $1.2 million in cap space.
You need a center, though. You got enough wingers. You need a center.
Ryan Donato is a center, you dope.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Perfect.
Stop showing me that you're balding.
That's exactly who you need.
But, you look at guys like that. I mean, Dylan Cousins didn't work out in Ottawa necessarily, but there was Dylan Cousins. Kyle Palmieri would have been a nice depth piece.
Yeah, he was good too.
You could have went over for I mean, you know where you could afford Elias Pettersson. But I even talk about Nick Robertson. I know he waived his no. I know he said no, he didn't want to move. But you offer enough picks for him, there's a good chance he goes, right?
Yeah, but he's a winger. You need a center.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about depth in general and scoring, because that's been a big issue. Look at Beauvillier. He's been fantastic in Washington on this playoff run.
Yeah, that was an undermined trade at the time, but wow.
Yeah.
Right? Ryan O'Reilly in Nashville, it would have been hard to figure out what the gap.
Yeah.
But if you can make that work, Ryan O'Reilly might have been the missing piece for Winnipeg. So all I'm getting at here is we just look at this trade board, and especially Ryan Donato, who had such a good season.
That would have been the one to get.
Right? 31 goals.
That would have been the one to get.
31 assists, 62 points on a team that was terrible.
And he has, what, a $2 million cap hit. He had $1.2 million in cap space. So
Easy.
give an extra pick against Chicago, take 50% of his salary, boom, done.
Now, mind you, we're yelling and screaming and acting like dopes. Maybe Winnipeg wins tonight, and none of this matters. Right? Like, legitimately. But that's how, if Winnipeg loses tonight in 8 minutes, when the clock starts, that's what everyone's going to be asking. So I want to go around the room now. Dan has had time to flip-flop if he chooses. So I'm going to leave Dan last so he has even more time to flip-flop. Chazzy, who's winning tonight? Hella fraud in the blue Winnipeg Jets, not the Blue Bombers, or Jordan washed up, maybe not washed up anymore, Binghamton, and the St. Louis Blues. Who's getting it done?
I'll be devastated for the fan base in Winnipeg if you lose this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if St. Louis wins. So I will hope for the Jets. That will be my official pick.
Lane, who are you taking? We've had time to talk it over.
Hashtag Binner is a winner. I'm going with the St. Louis Blues, baby.
I think the Winnipeg Jets needed to watch the Mighty Ducks movie and use the goalie more effectively. But I am still going to say I'm going to stick with what I said before. Losing game 6 for the Winnipeg Jets was devastating. St. Louis Blues, I'm even going to call it, they're going to score 5.
I think Hellebuyck being yanked in game 6 was the most devastating.
Hellebuyck is going to have another bad game, and they're just going to leave him in. More for your money.
I think it's a mistake.
You have had time to become more flip-flop for your money. Are you, after our conversations about the trades they didn't make, the line change-ups they don't have,
we have a drum roll?
Who are you taking tonight? Are you sticking with your Canadian pride, or are you realizing that the self-proclaimed analyst and the Dashing Lane Dashco knows what's up?
I'm sticking on my boss, the CEO Chazzy here, and I'm not flip-flopping, and I'm going with Winnipeg. I think Adam Lowry's going to step up and get it done. No!
Who knows? Maybe Lane and I will deserve the circus book.
Yeah.
Who knows? Before we sign off, though, I do want to ask you guys, since we pretty much know all of round 2 at this point, what's the series in round 2 you're most excited about? Lane, I'll start with you.
Oh, it has to be Toronto, Florida. I just think that, like you said, we talked about it the other night. Like, it's probably the 2 best teams in the East. It feels like one of those teams is going to Stanley Cup, and I feel like I don't even want to say this because I want to pinch myself saying it, but it really feels like if Toronto can pull it off, feels like really the last big thing standing in their way that could potentially break the curse in 67. But I mean, I feel like that's really the last big hurdle standing in their way right now.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. I think this is the one that if Toronto can get it done, this could be their best chance to get through. Now, the series I'm really looking forward to straight up is going to be Edmonton versus the Golden Knights.
That's gonna be
I look at this series. This is powerhouse versus powerhouse. The West is wide open, unlike the East. I really think the East, whoever wins between Toronto and Florida, is going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep.
No disrespect to Washington or Carolina, but I don't see either one of those teams winning another 2 rounds. However, the West, I think Edmonton now is set themselves up. They faced so much adversity in that first round, and they bent, but they didn't break. The Golden Knights faced a lot more adversity than they were expecting to. The Minnesota Wild gave them a run for their money. Both of these teams are battle-tested going into this round. As long as Edmonton isn't stupid and goes back to Stuart Skinner, that's going to be a hell of a series.
Oh, they're not going back to Skinner.
I kept saying that when he was terrible and Jack Campbell was playing amazing. So I don't know with Edmonton. For all we know, Stuart Skinner starts game one. Man, remember too, Ekholm looks like he won't be available for that, at least the start of round 2 either. So that's a big loss for Edmonton still. Well, Dan recoups that because he thinks that players should just play unless they're dead. Chazzy, what's the series you're really looking forward to?
No, I'm with you. This Edmonton Vegas, they just took out LA 4 times in a row. This team looks like on another mission here after the last 3 or 4 games. So I'm very excited to see, especially for our fan out there, Joey, who's a huge Oilers fan, to see this Oilers team really go and finally see Connor hoist that. So my pick's going to be Oilers right to the end here.
And Dan, I've given you time, so much time that you could flip-flop in your mind, have 80,000 times what series you're looking forward to the most. What would it be, homie D?
I'm going off the board here. I'm going to say with whatever happens tonight, whoever faces Dallas, either if it's Winnipeg or St. Louis, it's going to be a very good series either way versus Dallas. So I'm going to say that one because St. Louis is going to be the huge Cinderella underdog story, and Winnipeg's going to have all the pressure winning President's Trophy and being in Canada. So I say whoever wins this game faces Dallas, that's going to be a series of lots.
And what happened? Almost 3 50-win seasons and not win a playoff series? So.
Jacob is like, the more I think about it, is almost worse than Toronto.
I'd argue it is worse than Toronto because Winnipeg has had less success. I didn't really, when I looked at the series roundups, I'll be honest, I completely forgot, to Lane's credit, that the 1 year they won a round in recent memory was the screwed up year.
Yeah.
So, and that was a weird season too. Like the guys weren't as tired. And then Winnipeg went in there and they lost in 5 after that to Montreal, which, let's be honest, after beating Edmonton pretty easily, then getting blown out by Montreal, and Jazzy, no disrespect, but that was a disaster.
Yeah.
Because Montreal's big advantage in every playoff round that year was goaltending and Carey Price. And I argue that realistically, Connor Hellebuyck and Carey Price should have been at a similar level, and they just weren't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah, Winnipeg is becoming the Toronto Maple Leafs of the West, unless they can get it done. And truthfully, too, Colorado's also starting to become like that. If we look at Colorado's recent playoff history, it's not great. Ever since they've traded Nazem Kadri, they have not been able to find a way to really find that playoff success. So, like, we look at, just to put into perspective, after they won the Stanley Cup in 22, they've won 1 round in the last 3 years, Colorado.
Yeah,
1 round.
Good. Not good.
1 round.
Not good.
The 1 round they won, they beat Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah.
So the only team they can beat is a team that can't show up at the playoffs either.
Yeah.
And funny enough, this is back-to-back years you've lost to Dallas.
Crazy.
Also, another thing we didn't touch upon that I forgot to bring up, that Colorado hasn't won a Game 7, even though they've only had 7 of them, since 2002.
Yeah, what? I heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a great point, Lane.
Joe Sakic days.
2002?
Yep.
Wow.
I was looking at it here on my sheets, yeah.
That's nuts.
Before
they've been so dominating, they didn't need Game 7.
Still 0-7. 0-7.
It's crazy to think that they're only 7. That's wild.
Now, before we sign off to check out this game, I want to ask you guys quickly: is Joe Sakic in the hot seat right now?
I was just going to say that. I think he is,
without really trying that hard to re-sign him. And this was a year. Imagine if you had Rantanen, Landeskov, and McKinnon back for one more magic run.
Yeah.
Because let's say Gabriel Landeskov hangs it up. It's possible Gabriel Landeskov hangs it up this year.
I think they're in search for a goalie.
Why? I don't think Mackenzie Blackwood was the issue.
No, I disagree with you, Chazzy. Sorry.
We'll see.
No, we won't.
I think Mackenzie Blackwood was a great goalie.
No. All I see is duck butt.
Duck butt? Oh, God.
But, Lane, do you think Joe Sakic might be on the hot seat here?
I agree with what you're saying. I totally think so. Like, I mean, I said to my friend the other night, I can understand why Carolina maybe traded Rantanen because he was being kind of a crybaby and saying, "Oh, I don't want to play here." So I understand that trade, but I don't understand from Colorado. If you even knew, even if you had a 75% like intuition that Landeskog was coming back, was maybe going to make it for the first round, you got to keep Mikko Rantanen and go for one more round. Even if you don't re-sign him, even if you lose him for nothing. Look at what the Leafs did want to get rid of Marner, but at the end of the day, they're still happy to have Mitch Marner. Even if he goes to Chicago to play with Connor Bedard, if the Leafs go to the third round, if they win a cup and he bounces, hey, we had Mitch Marner and we did something. Woohoo!
Yeah,
It's sort of like the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard. They damn well knew he wasn't going to resign. They didn't care, and they went and won a championship.
Exactly.
And I feel Colorado, with all the other pieces they made, if you included Mikko Rantanen and take out Martin Necas, there's a very good chance that you win this series against Dallas because Rantanen was the difference maker in this series.
I agree. Yeah.
But I think it's time we sign off and get the popcorn ready. I know Chazzy made us popcorn the other day when we were watching Kentucky Derby. Chazzy, it needed a little bit of seasoning, but that's okay. You can make it up to me
don't be difficult.
I can't.
I think it was the 50% less sodium kind, so it was a little light.
See, he's trying to help you out, Jacob.
But the double burgers he made were delicious.
They were great.
But delicious. He even sent us home with food. Like, what a guy. What a hashtag CBC.
Great.
But thank you very much for
tuning in.
But thank you very much for tuning into the Streakers Island podcast. Watch out for some new content coming out. Dan and I had a little golf battle on the weekend. We both suck. Make sure you watch out for that video.
But it was still close, right down to the last putt
for the weekend. And we will be back on Tuesday to recap the first game of the Leafs series, the NHL draft lottery, and previewing the rest of the playoffs in the second round. So thank you very much for watching the Streakers Island podcast. Remember to follow us on all the social medias. Download the Streakers app today and challenge any of us. We are all in the app, including Lane Dashing Dashco. So you want to see who's more dashing on the app? Get in there and find out. You're not more. No one's more dashing than Lane, though. None of us have that title. But we will see you on Tuesday. Stay healthy. Stay well. Drink lots of water. And we will see you later.
Bye-bye.